Yeah. So this is the Apex Research Scholar Program, and we are on week 5. And this week we're going to be talking about academic writing and research communication. So, week 5 overview. Number 1, the structure of a research paper. We're going to be talking about that. Then we're also going to dive into intros and conclusions. Then we're going to talk about the research posters, which is the second deliverable for week 6. And then we're going to talk about presentation techniques. So, where you are in the program. So, right now we're on week 5. This is almost the end. So, this week we're going to be doing writing and communication. And week 6, we will be finally presenting our research, our posters, and our presentations. So, why academic writing matters? Research that cannot be communicated clearly is research that doesn't exist for the rest of the world. Writing and presentation isn't decoration, it's the product. So 2 million peer-reviewed articles published globally each year. Standing out requires clarity. Standing out requires clarity. Our research projects, they need to be clear and have clear direction, and they need to be specific so that people can understand what they're reading, and so our research can actually have impact. And then less than 20% of academic papers are read beyond the abstract. A clear abstract and introduction determines everything. If the abstract isn't solid, then it shows that the rest of the paper isn't really worth reading. So that's why our introduction has to be at its very best. And then 7 seconds is the average time a conference attendee spends scanning a research poster before deciding to stop. So the research poster needs to be very well made, very optimized, and very deep visually appealing and nicely detailed because humans are visual creatures. So we need to make sure that it looks really nice so it can yield the best results. So, anatomy of a research paper. Number 1, abstract, 150 to 250 words. It should also summarize the entire paper, the question, the method, the findings, and the conclusion, and it's written last. It's almost like a standalone document. And then number 2, the introduction. The introduction sets the context. It states the research gap from your literature review, and it ends with a specific research question or hypothesis. And then number 3, literature review. Tell that another researcher could repeat your exact procedure. And then number 5, results/findings. What the data showed. No interpretation here, just clear, accurate reporting of results. And then number 6, discussion. What do the results actually mean? And how do they connect to the prior literature? And then number 7, conclusion. It should be 3 to 5 sentences and it should restate the question. It should summarize key findings and state the implication or contribution. And then number 8, references. All cited sources should be in the correct format like APA or MLA, and it should all be consistent and in alphabetical order. So, writing a strong introduction. The introduction has to do 4 things in order, and there's no skipping steps. So, number 1, the hook and the context. An example, hook and context. Approximately 75% of American teenagers report using social media daily, yet the effects on cognitive development remain contested. So it's very specific. There's a percentage point. It's a very specific hook, and there's context given. And then number 2, background summary. Prior studies have demonstrated associations between heavy social media use and reduced sleep duration among adolescents. And then the gap. However, fewer studies have examined this relationship in early adolescence, ages 12 to 14, limiting the generalizability of existing findings. And then number 4, research question/purpose. The present study examines the relationship between daily social media use and self-reported sleep quality in students aged 12 to 14 at one middle school. So, writing a strong conclusion. The conclusion isn't a summary, it's just a statement of what your study contributes and what should happen next. So, number one, restate the question and method. This study examined the correlation between daily social media use and sleep quality in 87 middle school students using a validated survey instrument. Number two, state the key finding in plain language. For example, results indicate a moderate negative correlation between social media use and sleep quality, with effects more pronounced among students reporting over 5 hours of daily use. And then number three, explain the significance. These findings show that school wellness programs may benefit from including guidance on evening device use, especially 7th and 8th graders. And then four, acknowledge limitations. The study is limited and it's by its cross-sectional design and reliance on self-reported data. Future research should use objective sleep monitoring over multiple weeks. So, while acknowledging limitations is the best way to show authenticity and transparency. And then number five, recommend future research. A study following students across a school year with actigraphy measured sleep data would definitely strengthen these findings. So the discussion section. The discussion is where your data becomes scholarship. It connects your findings to the real world and the literature. So in the discussion, try your very best to not repeat your results verbatim. Try your very best to not introduce new data in your findings, claim more than your data supports, and avoid mentioning contradictory findings. But in the discussion, you should try your very best to interpret what the results mean, compare to prior studies found, propose explanations for unexpected findings, and explicitly acknowledge your limitations because, again, it brings transparency and authenticity. So, academic writing styles. Use precise, specific language. Avoid saying things like, many students have problems with social media. A better thing you could say is, in this sample, 61% of students reported using social media for 4 or more hours daily. And then use third person and passive voice selectively. So avoid saying things like, I think the data shows, because it shows like a lack of confidence. So a better way is the data suggests. We're saying something like results indicate. And then define your terms. Avoid saying things like anxiety was measured in the study. A better thing you could say is anxiety was operationalized using the GAT-7, a validated 7-item scale. And then hedge appropriately. Avoid saying things like social media causes poor sleep. You could say these findings suggest that social media use may be associated with reduced sleep quality. And then make sure to cite every claim. Instead of saying studies show this, say adolescents in the US average 7 hours of sleep on school nights. And then make sure to use proper citation below. So citation quick reference, APA and MLA. Use the format your track mentor specifies. When in doubt, use APA for sciences and MLA for humanities. So this is a journal article example using APA format. So it says the authors, the date, the year that it was made, and then the specific excerpt from the article with page numbers or the number of the article. And then the journal article in MLA format. It's almost the same, except it starts with the author, and then it goes into the title, and then the proper citing as is shown on the screen. And then a website or government report, which is APA format. the format is organization first, and then the year, and then the title, publisher, and URL. And then a book APA is format. The format is author first name, last name, the year, the title of the book, and then the publisher. So what is a research poster? A research poster is a single-page visual summary of your research. It's supposed to be read in less than 2 minutes by someone standing in front of it. Clarity, not completeness, is the goal. So the standard research poster layout. So the poster should include, of course, the title of research, and then the author name, which would be just your first and last name, the institution/program, which in this case is Eureka Institute, and then the year 2026. And then we should make sure to include introduction or background in point form, and then the methods, results, and discussion and conclusion and references, all in point form, so it's easy and nice to read. So research poster design principles. So 100% make sure to use clear visuals per section, like charts, tables, or diagrams. Use a maximum of 300 words of body text across the poster, maximum. And then use preferably large fonts, like 24 for body text is fine, around 30, 36 for section headers, and then of course 48 or higher for the title. And then use high contrast colors only, because the point of a poster is to catch attention. So make sure it's readable from 3 feet away, and ensure that the key finding is the most visually prominent element on the poster. So using like a chart with the key finding listed in point form below would be a perfect example of that. And then make sure to not paste paragraphs of text from your paper onto the poster, because it's supposed to be point form, like I said. And then try not to use more than 3 colors, because visual clutter will undermine credibility. And then do not skip a visual. Numbers and text are harder to scan than on a chart. And do not use a font that's smaller than 18 pt anywhere on the poster, because remember, the text has to be large and point form, so it's easy to read from afar. And try to avoid using like plain white backgrounds, because there's not a lot of visual impact compared to a colored background. So example poster section, results and findings. So if we compare the two versions below, they contain the exact same information, but on the weak version, it's just a body of text, which is a lot to read. It's not in point form, and it's just too much for a poster. On the strong version, we can easily see it shows a graphic, which is more visually appealing, and you would rather look at a graphic than that body of text. It shows things are nicely labeled, and it's something that a poster should actually include instead of a body of text. So presenting your research, the basics. The 5-minute symposium presentation follows a simple structure. So number 1, around 45-second talk, you should introduce the problem, like what the topic is about, why does it matter, and include a compelling statistic or observation to open up. A very nice hook. And then state your question. What exactly did you study? How does it build on what's already known in that field? And what was the gap that you filled in with your research? And then explain your method. How did you conduct your study? And who were the participants? What did you measure and how? And then present your findings. What did you find? Walk through one or two key results, and reference your poster visuals directly. And then discuss and conclude. What do the results actually mean? And what are the limitations? Sorry about that. Handling questions. How real researchers respond. So this is the Q&A is not a test, it's a conversation. And you are the expert in your own study. So question, did you consider X variable? An answer could be, that's an important point. I did not control for X, yada yada. A future study could include it as a covariate. And then the question could be, how do you know your survey was accurate? You can answer by saying, that's a valid concern. Self-report measures have known limitations, etc. I note this in my limitations section. It's a very good answer. And then another question, can you generalize these findings? A good answer could be not beyond this specific sample. My participants were eighth graders at one school, so external validity is limited. But of course, when answering these questions, we don't need to use like large words. We can answer them simply, but of course, try your best to answer them as efficiently as possible. So I'm going to skip to the last question. I do not understand your method. So you could answer by saying, I'm happy to explain. I had participants fill out a survey measuring X and Y, and then I calculated the relationship between them. So peer feedback session, how it works. In today's session, you will share your poster with peers and receive structured feedback before finalizing for week 6. So as the presenter, you're going to share our draft posters in the session, and then we're going to walk our reviewers through each section in around 3 minutes. We're going to ask, is my main finding immediately clear, and what is confusing? And then we're going to take notes and actually implement the feedback that we receive. And then the reviewers will read the poster before the presenter speaks. They'll use the feedback framework below, which is by giving specific, actionable suggestions and not vague praise. And we're going to take note on what is working, what's unclear, and what's missing. So, structured feedback framework. Number 1, is the main research question visible and clear within 10 seconds? Yes, no, or needs work? Is the methodology section complete enough to understand how the study was done? Yes, no, missing? Is the key finding clearly highlighted? Is any section too text heavy? And is the language precise and appropriately hedged? So poster and presentation revision checklist. So the poster content, the research question should be visible in the title or first section. Background cites at least 2 sources. Method section is replicable at a basic level. Key finding is stated in one clear sentence. At least one visual is included, and the reference list is presented and formatted correctly. And then the poster design. Font, minimum 24 pt body text, and then 36 pt plus for headers. A maximum of 300 words of text in total. And high contrast, is the text readable from 3 feet away? And then are there more than 3 colors? And then is your name, track, and program in the title bar? So week 5 deliverables. Draft poster and presentation outline. Submit both deliverables before week 6. These are the materials you will use at the symposium. So the very first deliverable is a research poster. It'll be submitted as either a PDF or a Google Slides link. It should include all the standard sections like introduction, methods, results, discussion, and references, but in point form, of course. And then it will have at least one chart, figure, or table displaying the key finding. It'll be formatted for legibility, and It'll include the name, research track, and program name in the title bar. And then our second deliverable is the presentation outline, a bullet point script or outline for your 5-minute symposium presentation. It will have timed sections, with each segment labeled with approximate duration. It will have key talking points for each section, like the introduction, method, etc. And it'll have at least 3 anticipated Q&A questions with your planned responses. So that's it for the presentation. There's only 1 week left until our symposium. So good luck to everybody.